When my 35-year-old son found out that I had inherited $15 million, his wife coldly declared, "That old man doesn't deserve that kind of money. It should be ours." They demanded that I give it all to them, claiming that they deserve it more. After all the years of sacrificing for their happiness, I realized it was time to show them the true cost of greed. What happened next made them regret every word. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you are listening in the comments. The crystal stemware clinked softly as Michael cleared the dinner plates, his movements careful around the remnants of our Christmas feast. Turkey bones gleamed under the warm dining room light, and Ashley sat across from me, her smile still painted on, but her eyes calculating something I couldn't quite read. "Dad, you really outdid yourself tonight," Michael said, balancing 3 plates in his hands. That's when it happened. His elbow caught the corner of my briefcase. The leather case tumbled from the side table, spilling its contents across the hardwood floor. Legal documents scattered like fallen leaves, and I watched Michael's face change as his eyes landed on the top sheet. His breath caught, sharp, audible. 15. He couldn't finish the sentence. I moved quickly, dropping to my knees to gather the papers, but Ashley was already leaning forward, her neck craned to see. The Christmas tree lights reflected off the white pages as I tried to collect them, my hands suddenly clumsy. "Dad?" Michael's voice cracked like a teenager's. Did I read that right?" Ashley's fork clinked against her plate as she set it down with surgical precision. "Read what right, honey?" I straightened, the documents pressed against my chest. "It's nothing that concerns—" $15 million? Michael's words tumbled out in a rush. "The inheritance document says $15 million. The silence that followed felt dense, like the air before a thunderstorm. Ashley's painted smile finally cracked, revealing something hungrier underneath. "Your brother?" she asked, her voice suddenly gentle, probing. "The one who passed away?" I nodded, settling back into my chair with the papers now safely in my lap. "Harold died 3 months ago. The estate finally cleared probate last week." Michael sank into his chair as if his legs had given out. 15 million. You never mentioned—" Ashley's hand found Michael's arm, her fingers drumming against his sleeve. "I mean, we knew your brother was successful, but—" I folded the papers carefully, deliberately. "Harold built his software company from nothing, sold it 2 years before he died." My voice sounded strange in my own ears, distant. "He never married? No children? I was his only family." Ashley's eyes never left the documents in my hands. That's incredible, Robert. What a blessing for you." The word "you" hung in the air like smoke. Michael was staring at his hands, and I could see the wheels turning in his mind. Ashley's grip on his arm tightened, her nails leaving small crescents in his shirt fabric. "Dad," Michael said slowly, "you don't need all that money. I mean, at your age—" The words hit me like cold water. I looked at my son, my only child, the boy I'd raised alone after Margaret died, and saw a stranger. "What exactly are you suggesting?" I asked. Ashley leaned forward, her voice taking on that honeyed tone she used when she wanted something. "We're family, Robert. Families should support each other. And with little Emma and Jake to think about—" She gestured vaguely toward the framed photos of my grandchildren on the mantel. "Their college funds, their future. We could really use some help," Michael added weakly, not meeting my eyes. I set the papers on the table between us, my movements deliberate. "The money just became available. I haven't even decided what to do with it yet. But surely you see that sharing would be the right thing." Ashley's mask was slipping, her sweetness becoming strained. "We're young. We have dreams, plans. We could actually do something meaningful with it." The grandfather clock in the hallway chimed 9 o'clock, its deep tones marking time that suddenly felt precious. I looked at my son and his wife, really looked at them, and something cold settled in my chest. "This is an appropriate dinner conversation," I said finally. Ashley's laugh was sharp, brittle. "Money is always appropriate conversation when it affects family." Michael nodded, finding his voice again. "Ashley has a point, Dad. We've been struggling while you've been comfortable. Maybe it's time to think about your grandchildren's future." I stood slowly, my joints protesting. The papers crinkled as I gathered them. "I think we should finish cleaning up. You're staying the night, aren't you? The guest room upstairs is ready." Ashley and Michael exchanged a look. Quick, loaded with meaning I was only beginning to understand. "Of course we're staying," Ashley said. "We have so much more to talk about." I headed toward my bedroom, the documents clutched in my hand, leaving them to finish the dishes. Behind me, I heard their whispered conversation starting again, urgent and hungry. The house suddenly felt very small. I lay in my bed, staring at the ceiling as the digital clock cast its green glow across the room. 11:43 p.m. 4 hours since dinner ended, and sleep felt as distant as the moon outside my window. The old house creaked around me, settling into the December cold. Above my head, footsteps moved across the guest room floor, soft but deliberate. Then voices muffled through the thin ceiling that had never been properly insulated. I tried to ignore it at first. They were married. They needed to talk. But Ashley's voice cut through the floorboards with an edge that made me sit up. "Old man doesn't deserve $15 million. My blood went cold. I held my breath, straining to hear more. "Ashley, keep your voice down." Michael's whisper was barely audible. "He's asleep, Michael. And I'm right. He's wasted his whole life being ordinary, working that boring engineering job, living in this tiny house." Her voice dripped with disdain. "We're young. We could actually do something with that money." The floorboards creaked as she paced. I pressed my ear to the ceiling, my heart hammering against my ribs. "Maybe you're right," Michael said, and those 4 words shattered something inside my chest. "He has been pretty selfish with money lately. Remember when we asked for help with the car payments? He acted like we were asking for the world." Selfish. My son called me selfish. I gripped the sheets so hard my knuckles went white. "Exactly." Ashley's voice grew stronger, more confident. "We've struggled while he's been sitting comfortable. That inheritance should be shared. We deserve it more than he does." "But how do we convince him?" Michael asked. "You saw how he reacted tonight." "Leave that to me." Ashley's tone turned calculating. "Men his age can be influenced, especially when they're lonely. And if gentle persuasion doesn't work." She paused, and I heard her sit down on the bed above me. "We have options." "What kind of options?" "Legal ones. Think about it. He's getting older, maybe not thinking as clearly. We could contest his mental state, claim undue influence from Harold. There are precedents." My hands began to shake, not from fear, but from a rage so pure it felt like ice in my veins. "I don't know, Ashley. That seems extreme." $15 million, Michael. 15 million. That's extreme wealth for someone who will probably be dead in 10 years anyway. The casual cruelty of it hit me like a physical blow. 10 years. That's all the life she figured I had left, and even that felt too long to her. "We could pay off the house, buy a new car, take that trip to Europe we've always talked about," she continued, her voice dreamy now. "Emma and Jake could go to private school. We could actually live." "What if he says no again?" Ashley's laugh was soft and dangerous. "He won't. Trust me, I know how to handle men like your father. He's been alone too long. He's vulnerable. A little guilt about not being there for his grandchildren. Some tears about our financial struggles. He'll cave." Above me, the bed springs squeaked as Michael joined her. "You really think we deserve that money more than him?" he asked. "I know we do. What's he going to do with it? Sit in this house and count it? We have our whole lives ahead of us. He's had his chance." The clock read 12:17 a.m. when their voices finally faded to whispers, then silence. I lay there until dawn broke through my curtains, processing every word, every casual dismissal of my worth, every cold calculation of my death. By the time I heard them stirring above me around 7 a.m., something fundamental had changed inside me. The loving father who had sacrificed everything for his ungrateful son was gone. In his place sat someone much more dangerous, a man with nothing left to lose and $15 million to protect. I got up and made coffee, my movements precise and methodical. The kitchen filled with the rich aroma, and I sat at my small table, waiting for them to come downstairs. They thought they knew me. They thought I was weak. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Steam rose from my coffee cup in the early morning light, but I couldn't taste anything. The kitchen felt different somehow, smaller, like the walls had moved closer during the night. Above me I heard Ashley and Michael stirring, their voices low and conspiratorial. I closed my eyes and let myself remember. Margaret's hospital room 10 years ago. The machines beeping their steady rhythm while I held her cold hand. She was dying, and we both knew it. But Michael had only visited twice in 3 weeks. "Take care of Michael," she'd whispered, her voice barely audible. "But don't forget to live for yourself, Robert." I'd promised her I would. Another lie I'd told myself. When Margaret died, Michael had been too grief-stricken to help with funeral arrangements. I'd chosen the casket, written the obituary, organized the service. He'd shown up in a wrinkled suit, dry-eyed, and left immediately after the burial to process with Ashley. I'd grieved alone. Before that, college. 4 years of 80-hour weeks at the engineering firm, taking every overtime shift, every weekend project. $80,000 in student loans I'd co-signed, then paid myself when Michael couldn't find steady work after graduation. He'd graduated summa cum laude and thanked his professors, his girlfriend, his study group. He'd forgotten to mention me in his speech. I'd watched from the back row, proud and invisible. 5 years ago, the house. Michael and Ashley had been renting a cramped apartment, complaining constantly about noisy neighbors and thin walls. Ashley had dropped hints about home ownership like breadcrumbs, leading me exactly where she wanted me to go. "If only we had help with a down payment," she'd sighed. "The market is so competitive." I'd liquidated my retirement investment account. $150,000, my security, my future, handed over so they could have granite countertops and a 2-car garage. Ashley had said thank you once, then immediately started hinting about furniture money. I'd continued renting my 1-bedroom place while they hosted dinner parties in their spacious home. But the daily sacrifices hurt more than the big ones. $2,000 a month in emergency loans that were never repaid. Free babysitting every weekend while they went out to expensive restaurants I couldn't afford. Grocery shopping for their family during Michael's frequent unemployment spells. Car repairs, medical bills, vacation funds. I'd been an ATM with a heartbeat. Last month, Michael had complained that my house was too small for family gatherings. Ashley had rolled her eyes at my Christmas gifts, practical things I'd saved for months to buy. "Dad always gets such boring presents," she'd told her sister on the phone, not knowing I was listening from the kitchen. I opened my eyes and calculated in my head. 35 years of sacrifice. College, the house, monthly support, emergencies, gifts, babysitting, groceries. Over $400,000. My entire savings, my retirement, my future, all given freely to a son who saw me as selfish. Margaret would be ashamed of what Michael had become, but she'd be more ashamed of me for enabling it. I'd created this monster by being too generous, by teaching Michael that love meant money, that family meant taking without giving back. Now they wanted my brother's inheritance too. $15 million they'd never earned, never deserved. The coffee had gone cold in my hands. Sunlight streamed through the kitchen window, illuminating the photo of Margaret on the counter. Her smile looked sad in the morning light, disappointed. I heard footsteps on the stairs, Ashley's heels clicking against wood, Michael's heavier tread behind her. They were coming down for breakfast, ready to continue last night's conversation. But the man who'd overheard their plans wasn't the same man who'd raised an ungrateful son. That generous, naive father had died somewhere between midnight and dawn. In his place sat someone harder, someone who'd finally learned that love without respect was just exploitation. I took a deep breath and prepared to meet my family for what might be the last time. They thought they were coming down to manipulate a lonely old man. They were about to meet someone much more dangerous, a father who'd finally stopped giving. Ashley entered my kitchen like she owned it, her heels clicking against the linoleum with sharp precision. She'd dressed carefully, a soft blue sweater that made her eyes look innocent, her hair pulled back in a way that suggested vulnerability. She was preparing for war. "Good morning, Robert," she said, her voice honey-sweet. "You're up early?" Michael shuffled behind her, avoiding my eyes. His shoulders were hunched, defensive, like a boy caught stealing from the cookie jar. "Couldn't sleep?" I said simply, gesturing to the coffee pot. "Help yourselves." Ashley poured 2 cups, her movements graceful and deliberate. "This big house must get lonely sometimes. All these empty rooms, just you rattling around." I sipped my coffee and said nothing. We've been thinking, she continued, settling into the chair across from me, about last night, about your inheritance. Have you? Michael finally met my eyes, then quickly looked away. Ashley has some good points, Dad, about family, about sharing blessings. Ashley's hand found his arm, her fingers stroking encouragingly. We're not asking for charity, Robert. We're talking about family responsibility. You raised Michael to work hard, to build a future. But sometimes even hard-working people need help. I set down my cup with deliberate care. And what kind of help are you thinking about? Her smile widened, predatory. Well, you don't really need $15 million, do you? I mean, at your age, what would you even do with all that money? That's not really your concern? The sweetness in her voice took on an edge. But it is our concern, Robert. We're family, and family looks out for each other. Michael leaned forward, finding his courage. Dad, think about Emma and Jake. Their college funds, their future. Don't you want to help your grandchildren? I've been helping them their entire lives. I've been helping you both for decades. Ashley's mask slipped slightly. Sure, you've helped here and there. But this is different. This is real money. Life-changing money. For whom? For all of us. Her voice rose. Then she caught herself, forcing the smile back. We're young, Robert. We have dreams, plans. We could actually do something meaningful with that inheritance. I stood slowly, walking to the window that overlooked my small backyard. The December morning was gray and cold, matching my mood. You know what I think, I said without turning around. I think you both believe you deserve my brother's money more than I do. The silence behind me was deafening. That's not, Michael started. Yes, it is. I turned to face them. You think I'm too old? Too ordinary? Too boring to deserve $15 million? You think I'll just let it sit in a bank while you could be living your dreams? Ashley's composure cracked. Well, wouldn't you? What are you going to do with it, Robert? Buy a bigger house? Travel the world? You've never wanted anything. Maybe that's because I spent 35 years wanting things for my son instead. Michael flinched as if I'd slapped him. We deserve some of that money, Ashley continued, her voice hardening. We've struggled while you've been comfortable. We're the ones with young children, with futures to build. You're just going to hoard it like some old miser. Based on what do you deserve it? I asked quietly. Based on being family, she snapped. Based on being young and full of potential instead of old and useless. The words hung in the air like poison gas. Michael's eyes widened, realizing his wife had gone too far. Ashley, he whispered, but she was past caring about masks. It's true, isn't it? What's he going to do with $15 million except count it? We could actually use it. I walked back to the table, my movements calm and measured. Is that what you both think? That I'm old and useless? Michael couldn't look at me. Dad, that's not what she meant. Yes, it is. I sat down across from them. And you agree with her, don't you, son? You think you deserve your grandfather's money more than your father does. Maybe we do, Michael said quietly, and there it was, the truth finally spoken in daylight. Ashley reached across the table, her hand grasping for mine. Robert, please, think about your grandchildren. Think about their future. Don't be selfish. I pulled my hand away. Selfish? We'll contest this legally if we have to, Ashley said, desperation creeping into her voice. You're getting older, maybe not thinking as clearly. Harold might have unduly influenced you somehow. I stood up, my chair scraping against the floor. Get out. They froze. Get out of my house. Now. Ashley's mouth fell open. Robert, you can't be serious. Pack your things and leave, both of you. Michael half rose from his chair. Dad, please, let's talk about this reasonably. There's nothing reasonable about what you're asking. There's nothing reasonable about what you think you deserve. I walked to the front door and opened it. You have 10 minutes. I watched from the window as they threw their belongings into their car. Ashley's face twisted with rage, Michael looking confused and lost. Ashley slammed her door hard enough to rattle the windows. As they drove away, Ashley's words floated back to me through their open window. This isn't over, you selfish old bastard. I stood in my empty house, surrounded by silence, and smiled for the first time in hours. They'd started a war they couldn't win. I walked to my desk and picked up my phone. scrolling through contacts until I found what I was looking for. Thompson and Associates, Legal Services. It was time to make some calls. 3 weeks of blessed silence had lulled me into believing they'd accepted defeat. I sat in my favorite armchair, reading the morning paper with my coffee steaming beside me when the doorbell shattered my peace. The man at my door wore a crisp uniform and carried a clipboard thick with official-looking papers. Robert Anderson. Yes? Legal documents requiring your signature. He held out the clipboard with practiced efficiency. Sign here, please. My hand trembled slightly as I signed. The envelope felt heavy, ominous. I watched his car disappear down the street before closing the door. Inside the envelope, legal letterhead caught the light. Petition for determination of incapacity. Stared back at me in bold letters. My vision blurred as I read further. Petitioners Michael R. Anderson and Ashley M. Anderson hereby request this honorable court to determine that respondent Robert D. Anderson lacks the mental capacity to manage his financial affairs. The words swam on the page. Dementia. Irrational decisions. Unable to manage affairs. They were trying to have me declared mentally incompetent. I sank into my kitchen chair, spreading the documents across the table with shaking hands. The court date glared at me. February 8th, 2025. Less than 3 weeks away. Attached were witness statements from neighbors I barely knew, claiming they'd observed concerning behavior and signs of cognitive decline. Mrs. Patterson from 2 houses down supposedly witnessed me talking to myself in the yard and forgetting to bring in my mail for days. I'd never spoken to Mrs. Patterson beyond polite greetings. The medical evidence came from Dr. Patricia Williams, who claimed I showed significant signs of dementia during a consultation I'd never attended. According to her report, I was confused about basic financial concepts and unable to recall recent events. My hands clenched into fists. They'd forged everything. But the cruelest blow came on page 4. Petitioners have secured respondents' assets totaling $500,000, pending this court's determination to prevent further financial harm. They'd frozen $500,000 of my money, my checking account, my savings, my investment portfolio, locked away based on lies. I read the petition 3 times, each reading stoking my fury higher. They weren't just trying to steal my inheritance. They were trying to destroy my independence, my dignity, my very identity as a competent human being. The phone felt cold against my ear as I dialed Thompson and Associates. Sarah, it's Robert Anderson. I need your help immediately. Robert, what's wrong? You sound... They're trying to have me declared mentally incompetent. I have legal documents in front of me that are complete fabrications. A pause, then Sarah's voice, sharp and professional. Don't say another word over the phone. Can you be in my office in an hour? I'll be there in 30 minutes. I gathered the documents, my hands steady now with purpose. 3 weeks ago, I'd believed the worst thing my son could do was demand my money. I'd been naive. They wanted to strip away everything that made me human. As I drove toward the law office, one thought echoed in my mind. If they wanted to play dirty, they'd just taught me the rules. But they'd made one critical mistake. They thought they were fighting a confused old man. They were about to discover they'd declared war on someone with nothing left to lose and 15 million reasons to fight back. I arrived at Thompson and Associates 15 minutes early, carrying a leather folder I'd organized through the sleepless night. Sarah Thompson's office smelled of leather and coffee, its walls lined with law books that suddenly felt like weapons in my arsenal. Show me everything, Sarah said, settling behind her desk with reading glasses perched on her nose. I opened my folder methodically. Bank statements for the past 5 years. Every transaction documented and categorized. Investment portfolios showing consistent, intelligent management. Medical records from my annual checkups. Sarah's eyebrows rose as she flipped through pages. Robert, these financial records are immaculate. Your portfolio performance is better than most fund managers achieve. Now look at their petition. She compared the documents, her expression darkening. This Dr. Patricia Williams. I've never heard of her. Let me check the medical board database. Her fingers flew across her keyboard. She's not board certified in geriatrics. She's actually a pediatrician in Tacoma. My jaw tightened. Ashley's college roommate. I remember her from their wedding. And these witness statements? Sarah pulled out a magnifying glass, examining signatures. Robert, look at this handwriting. The loops in the G's, the slant of the letters. These signatures were written by the same person. Ashley always had distinctive handwriting. Too many loops. Sarah leaned back in her chair. This isn't just a weak case, it's fraud. But we need to respond aggressively. I want you medically evaluated immediately to counter their claims. 2 hours later, I sat across from Dr. Mitchell Harrison at Spokane Medical Center. He was thorough, professional, with kind eyes that reminded me of my own father. I'm going to put you through comprehensive cognitive testing, he explained. Memory, reasoning, problem-solving, mathematical abilities, the works. The tests felt like mental gymnastics. Pattern recognition, word association, mathematical calculations, short and long-term memory assessments. I found myself enjoying the challenge, my engineering mind clicking through problems with precision I hadn't felt in years. Robert, Dr. Harrison said, reviewing my results, your cognitive function is not just normal for your age, it's exceptional. Your working memory scores are in the 95th percentile. I'd be happy to testify that you're sharper than most 40-year-olds I evaluate. Back at Sarah's office, she spread my medical results alongside the forged petition. This is beautiful, Robert. Their case isn't just weak. It's insulting to anyone with legal training. I pulled out my phone and showed her screenshots I'd taken overnight. I recorded several conversations with Michael and Ashley over the past 2 years. Washington is a one-party consent state. Sarah's eyes lit up. What kind of conversations? Ashley discussing my money, calling me selfish for not giving them more. Michael agreeing with her, talking about what they'd do with my inheritance. And the night after Christmas, I recorded them through the ceiling, planning this whole scheme. Robert, you've just handed me everything we need to not only dismiss their petition, but file criminal charges for fraud and elder abuse. She pulled out a legal pad, writing rapidly. We file a motion to dismiss with prejudice by 5 p.m. today. Tomorrow morning, we file a defamation countersuit and report the fraud to the district attorney's office. By the end of the week, they'll be begging you to forgive them. I stood to leave, feeling lighter than I had in weeks. Sarah, there's one more thing. I want to call in every loan I ever made to Michael. 35 years of financial support, most of it documented as loans, not gifts. Sarah smiled, predatory and satisfied. How much are we talking about? $412,000, with interest. We shook hands outside her office building. I'll file our response by 5 p.m. today, she said. By this time tomorrow, they'll realize they picked the wrong fight. I walked to my car and pulled out my phone, scrolling to Michael's contact. My finger hovered over his number for a long moment. Then I put the phone away. Let them think they were winning a little longer. The trap was set. Now I just had to wait for them to walk into it. Returning home from the law office, I loosened my tie with deep satisfaction. For the first time in weeks, I felt in control. I went to my home office, the converted spare bedroom where I'd balanced budgets and planned projects for 30 years, and turned on my computer. The screen's glow illuminated my face as I opened a new Excel spreadsheet. At the top, I typed, Project Justice. My engineering background had taught me that every complex problem could be broken down into manageable components. This situation was no different. I needed data, analysis, and a systematic approach. I started with what I knew best. Numbers. Column A, date. Column B, amount. Column C, purpose. Column D, loan or gift. 35 years of financial support to Michael spread across the screen in neat rows. College tuition, $45,000. Living expenses during college, $35,000. Post-graduation emergency loans, $67,000. The house down payment, $50,000. Monthly support payments, $72,000 over 3 years. The total made me pause, $412,000. Nearly $500,000 I'd given to a son who now called me selfish. But the patterns were more revealing than the amounts. Every major gift was followed within months by another request. Every time I said yes, their demands grew larger. I'd been feeding an addiction to my money, and like any addiction, it required bigger and bigger fixes. I cross-referenced the dates with my calendar records. During Michael's unemployment period last year, when they'd pleaded poverty, I found evidence he'd been working construction 3 days a week. When Ashley claimed they couldn't afford Emma's school supplies, I discovered she'd posted photos of a weekend spa trip. They hadn't just been lying recently, they'd been lying for years. I opened a second spreadsheet. Vulnerability assessment. Ashley's weaknesses were obvious. Her social media presence revealed everything, a desperate need for status and approval. She posted constantly about expensive purchases, exotic vacations, designer clothes. Her entire identity was built on appearing successful to her peer group. Michael's weaknesses ran deeper. He'd never learned to stand up to anyone, especially Ashley. His construction work was seasonal and irregular. Without my financial support, their lifestyle would collapse within months. But their greatest vulnerability was their entitlement. They'd never faced real consequences for their actions. Every mistake I'd cushioned with money. Every poor decision I'd enabled with generosity. I pulled out a legal pad and began sketching my strategy in flowchart form, the way I'd planned construction projects for decades. Phase 1, Legal Defense, complete. Sarah had destroyed their incompetency petition and prepared counterattacks. Phase 2, Financial Pressure, ready. I had documentation for $412,000 in legitimate debts they owed me. Phase 3, Social Consequences, pending. Ashley's social media addiction would become her downfall when her lies were exposed publicly. Phase 4, Economic Reality, execute when ready. Without my support, their artificial lifestyle would crumble. Each phase had measurable objectives and success criteria. This wasn't revenge. It was accountability they'd never experienced. I opened Ashley's Facebook profile and began systematically screenshotting posts. Her timeline told a story of hypocrisy that would shock anyone who believed her current victim narrative. March 2024. Photos from Cabo Vacation captioned, "Living our best life," posted the same week they'd asked me for grocery money. June 2024. Ashley showing off $300 shoes, complaining about people who hoard money instead of enjoying life. September 2024. Michael's new motorcycle in the driveway, purchased during his supposed unemployment. I saved everything with timestamps, creating an evidence file that would demolish her credibility. The clock showed 10:30 p.m. when I finally closed my laptop. 3 neat folders sat on my desk. Phase 1 complete. Phase 2 ready. Phase 3 pending. I picked up my phone and scrolled to Michael's number, then set it down without dialing. Not yet. Let them think they were winning a little longer. Margaret used to say I was too soft, too forgiving. She'd be proud of the man I was becoming, methodical, strategic, uncompromising. Tomorrow, Phase 2 would begin. My morning coffee was interrupted by my phone buzzing like an angry wasp. Text after text flooded in from neighbors and old colleagues. "Robert, have you seen Ashley's Facebook post? This can't be true, can it? Call me when you get this." I opened Facebook reluctantly, unprepared for what I found. Ashley's post sat at the top of my feed, already shared 47 times in 3 hours. The headline read, "Heartbroken by family elder abuse. Please share." Below it, she'd crafted a masterpiece of manipulation. Photos of empty kitchen cabinets, overdue utility bills, her children looking sad in worn clothes. The text told a story that bore no resemblance to reality, but felt emotionally devastating. My father-in-law inherited $15 million, but refuses to help his struggling family. While he hoards his wealth, my children eat cereal for dinner and worry about losing their home. He's turned his back on the grandchildren who love him, choosing money over family. Please pray for us during this difficult time. 89 comments of support and outrage had already accumulated. How could he be so heartless? Those poor babies. Money changes people. Someone should report him to social services. My hands shook as I screenshotted everything, documenting the lies with timestamps, but the damage was already spreading through our small community like wildfire. 20 minutes later, my phone rang. Margaret Patterson, my neighbor for 15 years. "Robert, I don't understand what's happening with your family." "Margaret, there's more to this story than what's online. But those photos of the children, they look so thin, so sad." I closed my eyes. "Margaret, have you seen Emma and Jake recently? At the grocery store? The park?" A pause. "Well, no, but they're healthy, well-fed children. Ashley's using old photos. probably from when Emma had the flu last winter. But I could hear the doubt in Margaret's voice. The emotional manipulation was working perfectly. At the grocery store that afternoon, conversation stopped when I approached. The cashier, who'd always been friendly, avoided eye contact. My neighbor Jim crossed the street rather than acknowledge me. Ashley's narrative was spreading faster than I could counter it. Social media had weaponized gossip, turning my community against me based on carefully crafted lies. That evening, I settled in for systematic research. If Ashley wanted to fight with social media, she'd chosen the wrong battlefield. I had 30 years of engineering problem-solving skills and unlimited time to deconstruct her lies. I opened her profile history, scrolling back through months of posts. The contradictions were staggering. December 15th, 2024. Just booked our Christmas ski trip. Can't wait for family fun in Aspen. Posted 5 days before she demanded my inheritance to feed the children. November 28th, 2024. Ashley showing off her new designer handbag collection worth easily $2,000. Posted during their supposed financial crisis. October 10th, 2024. Michael's hunting photos with expensive new equipment. Captioned, "New gear for the season." Posted while they were behind on mortgage payments. I cross-referenced her posts with their requests for money, creating a timeline that exposed her hypocrisy. Every claim of poverty was contradicted by evidence of extravagant spending. But Ashley's masterpiece was her friend network, dozens of equally entitled suburban mothers who fed off drama and outrage. They shared her posts without fact-checking, adding their own embellishments to the story. "I always knew there was something off about that old man," wrote her friend Jennifer. "Rich people are so selfish," added Maria. "Those children deserve better." I screenshotted everything, building a comprehensive file of their lies and contradictions. But more importantly, I was learning the rules of their game. They thought social media was about emotions and manipulation. They were right. But they'd forgotten that every post, every comment, every share left digital fingerprints that could be traced, documented, and used as evidence. By 11 p.m., I had 47 screenshots of contradictory posts, 23 examples of financial hypocrisy, and 15 instances of outright lies about their circumstances. My phone showed 23 missed calls from community members, some concerned, others accusatory, but I didn't respond. Not yet. I opened my laptop and began typing. To my friends and neighbors. Then I stopped, deleting the words. Tomorrow would be soon enough. Let Ashley dig herself deeper first. Every lie she told, every exaggeration she shared, every manipulation she posted was ammunition for my eventual response. She thought she was winning the war for public opinion. What she didn't realize was that she was creating the evidence that would destroy her credibility completely. The trap was almost ready. I just needed her to walk a little deeper into it. The community center buzzed with unusual energy as I arrived for our monthly neighborhood association meeting. Ashley had requested this gathering focus on elder abuse awareness, her final trap, she believed. But I'd also requested 15 minutes to address recent misunderstandings. My manila folder, labeled Financial History, 1995-2025, felt substantial in my hands. Ashley had transformed the front of the room into a dramatic presentation space. Poster boards displayed blown-up photos of empty cabinets, overdue bills, and sad-looking children. Her props told a story that would move any sympathetic heart. "Thank you all for coming," she began, her voice trembling with practiced emotion. "I never thought I'd have to expose family business publicly, but when children are suffering—" 30-plus neighbors filled the folding chairs, their faces already softening with sympathy. Ashley knew her audience well. She gestured to her displays. "These photos show the reality of financial elder abuse. While my father-in-law hoards $15 million, our children eat cereal for dinner. Our electricity was nearly shut off last week." Murmurs of outrage rippled through the crowd. How terrible. Those poor babies. Something should be done. I sat quietly in the back row, taking notes, waiting my turn. "I have documentation proving everything," Ashley continued, holding up official-looking papers. "Bank statements showing his excessive wealth, while we struggle for basic necessities. Medical records proving his declining mental state. Witness statements from concerned neighbors. The performance was masterful. By the time she finished, half the room was ready to call social services on my behalf. "Mr. Anderson," said Margaret Patterson, the meeting chair, "Ashley has requested we address this serious situation. Would you like to respond?" I stood slowly, carrying my folder to the podium Ashley had just vacated. Her confident smile suggested she believed she'd already won. "Thank you, Margaret. I do have some things to share." I opened my folder with deliberate care. Ashley mentioned documentation. I've brought 30 years of financial records. Let's examine the actual facts. I spread bank statements across the display table. These show monthly transfers of $2,000 to Michael Anderson for the past 3 years. That's $72,000. The room's energy shifted slightly. Ashley's smile faltered. "This receipt shows a $150,000 down payment for Michael and Ashley's house, paid from my savings account in September 2019. More murmurs, but different now, confused, questioning. College tuition payments, $45,000. Living expenses during his education, $35,000. Post-graduation emergency loans, $67,000. I could see neighbors doing mental arithmetic, their expressions changing. The total financial support I've provided to my son and daughter-in-law over 35 years, $412,000. The silence was profound. Now Ashley mentioned social media documentation. I connected my laptop to the community center's projector. Let's look at some of her Facebook posts. Ashley's vacation photos filled the screen. Cabo beaches, expensive restaurants, designer shopping bags. The timestamps were devastating. March 15th, 2024. Living our best life in paradise. Posted the same week they requested grocery money because they couldn't afford food. Gaffes echoed through the room. June 8th, 2024. Ashley showing off $300 shoes, complaining about people who hoard money instead of enjoying life, posted during their supposed financial crisis. Ashley was on her feet. "Those posts are out of context. You're manipulating." September 20th, 2024. Michael's new motorcycle, purchased during his unemployment period when I was paying their mortgage. Margaret Patterson raised her hand. "Ashley, you told me just last week that Robert never helped financially. You said he was heartless." That's not what I meant." Other neighbors began comparing notes. "She showed me photos of her new designer purse last month." "Didn't they just renovate their kitchen?" Ashley's panic was visible now. "You're all taking his side because he has money." "No," I said quietly. "They're questioning your story because it doesn't match the evidence." Michael, who had remained silent throughout the presentation, finally spoke. "Ashley, maybe we should go." "I'm not done," she snapped. "These records could be faked. Social media can be hacked." But the room had turned. The sympathy that had flowed toward her at the beginning was now directed at me. Neighbors approached with embarrassed apologies. "Robert, we're sorry we believed." "I should have asked for your side first." "We owe you an apology." I packed my materials methodically, accepting their contrition with grace. The truth had done its work. As Ashley stormed toward the exit, pulling Michael behind her, Margaret approached me. "Robert, I think there's something else you should know about what Ashley's been saying around town." I looked up with renewed interest. Apparently, this wasn't over yet. Michael arrived at the construction site Monday morning to find his co-workers avoiding eye contact. The usual morning banter died when he approached, replaced by uncomfortable silence and meaningful glances. His boss, Mike Rodriguez, emerged from the office trailer with a clipboard and a grim expression. "Michael, we need to talk. My office." The trailer's plastic chairs squeaked as Michael sat down, dread settling in his stomach like cold concrete. "Look, you're a good worker," Mike began, "but we've got a problem. 3 clients have called since Friday asking for different crew assignments." Michael's mouth went dry. "What do you mean?" "They're uncomfortable with the family drama. Word spreads fast in construction circles, and that community meeting—" Mike shook his head. "Clients don't want controversy on their job sites." "Mike, I can explain." "I'm sure you can, but here's the reality. I've got a business to protect. I can offer you unpaid leave while this blows over, or—" He didn't finish the sentence. Michael's hands shook as he called Ashley from the parking lot. They basically fired me, he said when she answered. The whole neighborhood thing has spread to my work sites. Ashley's response was sharp, panicked. How is that even legal? It doesn't matter if it's legal, it's done. During his drive home, Michael felt the walls of their artificial life crumbling around him. Without his steady income, how would they maintain the lifestyle Ashley insisted upon? At home, Ashley was staring at her phone screen with growing horror. Her social media world had collapsed overnight. Friend requests withdrawn, group chat removals, former supporters now silent or openly critical. Nobody's returning my calls, she told Michael as he walked through the door. Jennifer, Maria, Susan, they're all avoiding me. She'd tried creating new posts to control the narrative, but they fell flat. Her credibility was destroyed. The community had seen the evidence, done the math, and reached their own conclusions. At the grocery store that afternoon, former friends crossed aisles to avoid her. Conversations stopped when she approached. The social isolation was complete and devastating. Back home, Ashley spread their bills across the kitchen table like a grim puzzle. Without Michael's income, the numbers didn't work. Credit card statements revealed their complete dependence on Robert's financial support, money that would never come again. We can't survive without his help, she admitted, the words bitter in her mouth. We've been living beyond our means for years. Michael stared at the evidence of their financial irresponsibility. Car payments, credit cards, the mortgage, all calculated based on Robert's consistent support. Without it, they faced disaster within months. By evening, desperation drove them to Robert's door. Their knock was tentative, uncertain. When Robert opened the door, his expression was measured, unsurprised. We need to talk, Ashley said, attempting her old manipulation tactics. I think we may have misunderstood some things. Robert stepped aside to let them enter, but his body language remained distant. Maybe we can work this out, Dad, Michael added weakly. Find some middle ground. They sat in Robert's living room like supplicants before a judge. Ashley tried tears, guilt, family obligations. Michael attempted father-son bonding and shared memories. Robert listened patiently, then responded with devastating calm. Ashley, you called me mentally incompetent. You tried to have me declared incapable of managing my own affairs. You lied to our entire community about my character. But we could drop all that legal stuff, Ashley interrupted. We just need some help getting back on our feet. I helped for 35 years. You responded by calling me selfish and senile. Michael leaned forward desperately. Dad, please. We're family. Robert's laugh was cold. Family doesn't forge documents. Family doesn't try to steal inheritances. Family doesn't humiliate each other publicly. Ashley's composure finally cracked. We'll lose everything. You should have thought of that before you decided I was too old and useless to deserve my own money. Their protests grew more frantic, their promises more desperate, but Robert remained unmoved. Finally he stood. The time for working things out has passed. You made your choice at Christmas. As they reached their car, Ashley turned back one last time. This isn't over, Robert. We know where that money came from. We know what you're really like. From his window, Robert watched them drive away. Then he reached for his phone and scrolled to Thompson and Associates. His finger hovered over the call button for only a moment. 7 days had passed since Ashley's parting threat, and I sat across from Sarah Thompson reviewing a thick legal folder marked Anderson versus Anderson Financial Recovery Action. Robert, this is the most comprehensively documented debt recovery case I've ever seen, Sarah said, spreading financial records across her conference table. 30 years of meticulous record-keeping. I'd spent the week compiling everything, every loan agreement, every promissory note, every witness signature. My engineering background had served me well. I documented their financial dependence with scientific precision. The legal basis is rock solid, Sarah continued. These weren't gifts. They were structured loans with clear repayment terms. Your son signed acknowledgments for every major transfer. The numbers were staggering. Principal amount, $280,000 in documented loans over 15 years. Interest at standard personal loan rates, $147,000. Total debt, $427,000. They challenged your mental competency, Sarah said, organizing the papers. Now they face the consequences of that decision. No judge will call this harassment after what they attempted. I nodded, feeling the satisfaction of a well-executed plan. They wanted my money. Now they can pay for what they've already received. The legal documents were prepared with ruthless efficiency. Demand for immediate payment, in bold letters. Asset attachment orders for their house and vehicles. 30-day ultimatum before forced bankruptcy proceedings. The process server will deliver these by 2 p.m., Sarah said. By tonight, they'll understand their position completely. At their home, Ashley was sorting through more unpaid bills when the doorbell rang. The uniformed man's clipboard looked ominously familiar. Ashley Anderson, legal documents requiring your signature. Her hands trembled as she signed, Michael appearing over her shoulder as she opened the envelope. $427,000? Ashley's voice cracked on the amount. Michael grabbed the papers, scanning rapidly through legal terminology he barely understood. Dad kept records of everything. Every loan, every payment, every promise to repay. They called 3 different lawyers that afternoon. Each consultation confirmed their worst fears. These appear to be legitimate promissory notes, their attorney explained. The documentation is extensive. The interest calculations are standard. Your father has legal standing to collect. Ashley paced their living room frantically. He planned this whole thing. Every dollar he gave us was a trap. No, Michael said quietly, finally understanding. Every dollar was a test. We failed. Their house equity barely covered half the debt. Their cars were worth maybe $30,000 combined. Ashley's designer possessions couldn't dent the remaining balance. The bankruptcy lawyer was blunt. You have 30 days to negotiate or face forced liquidation of assets. Your father holds all the leverage. That evening, I sat in my study reviewing the completion of my strategic plan. Sarah called with an update. Documents delivered successfully. Their lawyer has already reached out, asking about negotiation possibilities. I leaned back in my chair, thinking of Margaret's final words before she died. Take care of Michael, but don't forget to live for yourself. For 35 years, I'd forgotten that second part. I'd enabled their entitlement, funded their ingratitude, and accepted their disrespect. No more. My phone rang at 6 p.m. The caller ID showed Michael's son. I stared at the display for 3 rings, remembering Christmas dinner, remembering their midnight plotting, remembering Ashley's lies to our community. I set the phone down without answering. It stopped ringing, then immediately started it again. This time I turned off the phone entirely. Outside my window, winter was giving way to early spring. New growth was coming, but some dead wood had to be cleared away first. They'd called me senile, incompetent, selfish. They'd tried to steal my independence, my dignity, my reputation. Now they were learning the cost of underestimating a man with nothing left to lose and everything to prove. The engineering project was complete. Every calculation had been correct. The first warm day of late winter found me in my garden, planting early spring bulbs that wouldn't bloom until next year. Some things I'd learned required patience and proper timing. The sound of car doors slamming shattered the peaceful afternoon. Ashley's aggressive stride across my lawn told me she'd reached the end of her rope. We need to settle this now, she announced, Michael trailing behind her with a folder clutched to his chest. I continued planting, not looking up. Good afternoon, Ashley. Michael? Don't play games with us, Robert. $400,000. You're trying to destroy us. I straightened slowly, brushing soil from my hands. I'm trying to collect debts you've owed for years. Ashley thrust papers at me. Some of these were gifts. You said so yourself? I glanced at their documents, hastily assembled, poorly organized. When did I say that? Christmas presents, birthday money, help with groceries were documented as loans with your husband's signature. Would you like to see the original promissory notes? Michael stepped forward, his voice desperate. Dad, think about Emma and Jake. Your grandchildren will lose their home. I've been thinking about them for years. That's why I documented everything. I met his eyes directly. I planned for the possibility you'd become ungrateful. Ashley's face contorted with rage. You planned this from the beginning. I planned for accountability. I hoped it would never be necessary. Michael's shoulders sagged. Ashley, we need to stop. This isn't working. Don't you dare give up now, she snapped at him. But something had changed in Michael's expression. For the first time in years, he was looking at the situation clearly. Dad, we were wrong. completely wrong about everything. Ashley whirled on him. Michael, what are you doing? I'm apologizing to my father for 30 years of taking him for granted. Michael's voice broke. I'm recognizing that you've been manipulating both of us. I've been fighting for our family. You've been fighting for money. There's a difference. I watched my son assert himself against his wife for the first time in their marriage. The moment felt both heartbreaking and hopeful. Michael, I'm offering you a choice, I said quietly. Accept responsibility for what you owe and work out a payment plan, or face bankruptcy with Ashley. But the free money stops today. Ashley's eyes blazed with fury. Choose, Michael, him or me. Michael looked between us, his wife of 10 years and the father who'd sacrificed everything for him. The decision took longer than it should have, but when it came, it was clear. I choose what's right. Finally. Ashley's scream of rage could probably be heard 3 blocks away. Fine! Destroy each other. I won't be your servant, Michael, and I won't watch you grovel to him. She stormed to their car, throwing her folder onto the ground. Papers scattered across my lawn like fallen leaves. If you're not in that car in 30 seconds, don't bother coming home. Michael watched her engine start, her tires squeal as she reversed out of my driveway. He made no move to follow. She'll come back, he said quietly. Probably. The question is whether you'll take her back. He knelt beside me, picking up one of the spring bulbs. Can I help with the planting? I handed him a small shovel. These won't bloom until next spring. Some things take time to grow properly. We worked in comfortable silence as the sun began to set. My son, really present for the first time in decades, learning to plant seeds that required patience and faith. Dad, he said eventually, I don't know how to apologize for 35 years of selfishness. Start with today. Make different choices going forward. The debt. I'll pay every penny back. It might take years. I know you will. That's why you're here planting flowers instead of driving away with Ashley. The golden hour light made everything look possible again. A father and son working together, finally understanding what family actually meant. These bulbs, Michael said, patting soil around the last one, they're really not going to bloom until next year? Next spring. The best things are worth waiting for. He nodded, understanding the deeper meaning. Some relationships, like some plants, needed to die back to the roots before they could grow properly again. As darkness settled over my garden, I looked at the neat rows of planted bulbs and felt something I hadn't experienced in years, hope for the future. Real family love required respect, not just obligation. It demanded accountability, not just forgiveness. For the first time in decades, I had both. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching. I kicked down the door. My Christmas surprise turned into a disaster. I wanted to surprise my daughter and arrived without warning, only to find her outside in 10-degree weather, wearing her pajamas, while her husband and his family were opening Christmas presents inside. What happened next made them scream and changed our lives forever. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments what time it is where you are now. The phone rang. Sharp, violent cuts through the evening quiet. I set down my whiskey glass. The amber liquid barely touched and reached for the receiver. The fire crackled in the hearth, casting dancing shadows across Martha's old armchair where I'd been reading. Dad, I can't do this anymore. Rose's voice hit me like a freight train derailment. Broken, sobbing. 25 years of marriage to Martha had taught me to listen for the spaces between words, the pauses that revealed more than speech ever could. Rose, sweetheart, what's wrong? The phone cord stretched as I stood, pacing to the window. December wind rattled the glass, and my reflection stared back. Gray hair disheveled. Concern etched deep in the lines around my eyes. He screamed at me for burning the toast. Her whisper came through what sounded like an echo chamber. Bathroom. Door locked. I can't breathe, Dad. My grip tightened on the receiver, knuckles whitening. Slow down, sweetheart. Tell me exactly what happened. It was just toast. I was trying to make his mother's breakfast the way she likes it, and the stupid thing got stuck. And when it popped up brown instead of golden, Rose's voice cracked. He threw the plate across the kitchen, called me useless, said I embarrass him in front of his parents. The glass under my free hand fogged with my breath. Outside, bare branches clawed at the darkening sky like desperate fingers. Where is he now? Downstairs with Irving, watching football, acting like nothing happened. Olive keeps making these little comments about how I need to learn proper household management. Rose's laugh came out hollow, bitter. They're all down there and I'm hiding in the bathroom like a child. I closed my eyes, saw her at 7 years old, hiding in this same way after nightmares. Back then I could fix everything with hot chocolate and bedtime stories. Will you come for Christmas? Please, Dad. I need you here. The words I wanted to say burned in my throat. Yes, I'll drive through the night. I'll be there in 6 hours and we'll figure this out together. Instead, I heard myself saying, I wish I could, Rose. I have that Peterson contract meeting on the 23rd. If this deal goes through? Silence stretched between us, the kind that fills with all the things you should have said instead. I understand. Her voice went flat, professional, the same tone she'd used at Martha's funeral when people offered empty condolences. You're busy. It's not that simple. It never is. The line went quiet except for her breathing, shallow and quick. Somewhere in the background, I heard Irving's booming laugh echoing up from their living room. Rose, listen to me. After Christmas, when things settle down, maybe we can... I have to go. He's calling for me. The dial tone buzzed in my ear like an angry wasp. I stood there, receiver in hand, watching the fire consume another log. My whiskey sat forgotten on the side table, growing warm. I should cancel everything. The Peterson contract could wait. Rose needed her father, but this deal meant financial security. Early retirement from the railroad had been good to me, but contracts like Peterson's were rare. Fixed income doesn't stretch like it used to, especially with the way everything costs more each year. I hung up the phone. The house felt too quiet. The fire crackled. The house felt too quiet. 3 hours passed. I'd gone through all the motions, checked the locks, banked the fire, brushed my teeth. Now I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling where shadows moved like accusations. The clock read 10:47 p.m. Sleep felt as distant as Mars. I got up, padded to the window in bare feet. The same reflection stared back, but this time I saw something else. Cowardice, maybe. Or just the face of a man who'd let his daughter down when she needed him most. 1 year ago, this exact room. Rose had called with her engagement news. She'd driven up from Westbridge on a Saturday morning, radiating that particular glow of new love. Sat on the living room couch where Martha used to fold laundry, twisting her grandmother's engagement ring, Martha's ring, around her finger. His name's Randall, she'd said. Randall Morrison. He's 38, works in commercial real estate. Dad, I'm so happy. Even then, something had felt wrong. The way she said his name too carefully. The way she kept glancing at her phone, checking messages. When do I get to meet this Randall? Soon. He's very busy with work right now, but you'll love him, Dad. He takes care of everything. Makes all the decisions so I don't have to worry about anything. That should have been my first warning. Martha never needed anyone to make her decisions. She'd been my partner, not my dependent. People don't change that easily, sweetheart, I'd told her when she mentioned his temper. Marriage reveals character. It doesn't transform it. You're being unfair. He loves me. Her nervous laughter had filled the room like smoke. She'd spent the next hour defending a man I'd never met, making excuses for behaviors she'd barely described. Red flags flapping in a hurricane, and I'd chosen not to see them. Why hadn't I fought harder? Why hadn't I demanded to meet him before any engagement? Why had I nodded politely when she said he was too busy to visit? The clock showed 11:23 now. I returned to bed, pulling Martha's quilt up to my chest. She'd sewn it the year before she died, her hands still steady, despite the cancer eating her from the inside. Martha would have known what to say to Rose tonight, would have known how to cut through Randall's manipulation with surgical precision. She'd never been afraid to speak difficult truths when someone she loved was in danger. But Martha was gone, and I was here, lying awake while my daughter suffered because I was too afraid of making waves, too concerned about a business contract to drive 6 hours and be the father she needed. The wind picked up outside, rattling the windows like it was trying to break in, or maybe break out. Sometimes it was hard to tell which way the pressure was flowing. I rolled over, pressed my face into the pillow, tried to find sleep that wouldn't come. The wedding. How could I have ignored what happened at the wedding? 11:30 p.m., still staring at the ceiling, but now my mind had fixed on that January day 11 months ago. The day I watched my daughter marry a stranger and did nothing to stop it. St. Michael's reception hall. Rose in Martha's grandmother's dress, altered to fit her smaller frame. She'd looked beautiful and fragile, like spun glass that might shatter with the wrong word. I'd sat alone at the family table, watching Randall's relatives dominate the conversation. The guest list had been small, mostly his people. Rose's friends from college hadn't been invited. Too expensive, she'd explained. Randall thinks we should keep it intimate. Olive Morrison had positioned herself as the expert on everything, her voice cutting through the reception chatter like a buzzsaw. Now Rose will need to learn how to be a proper wife, she'd announced to anyone within earshot. Randall has specific expectations about household management, organization, meal planning. His previous girlfriends never quite measured up in that department. Rose had smiled, that tight, brittle smile she'd perfected. I'm looking forward to learning. Like marriage was a master class in pleasing one man instead of a partnership between equals. Irving Morrison had been worse. Crude jokes about keeping wives in line delivered with the confidence of a man who'd never been challenged. Other guests had shifted uncomfortably, but no one said anything, including me. Women need to know their place, he'd declared during his toast. That's what makes a happy marriage. Right, Rudolph? I'd lifted my glass and said nothing. Coward. The worst moment came during the cake cutting. Rose had laughed as she tried to feed Randall a small bite, the way couples do at weddings. Instead of playing along, he'd grabbed her wrist. Careful with the suit, Rose. This jacket costs more than most people make in a month. Her smile had faltered, just for a second, but I'd seen it, that flash of shame and embarrassment. She'd apologized, at her own wedding, for nearly getting a tiny bit of frosting on his precious jacket. He's just nervous about the wedding, Dad, she'd whispered when I'd asked if everything was okay. Even then, she was making excuses for him. I got up again, paced to Martha's jewelry box on the dresser. Her wedding ring still sat in the velvet slot, catching moonlight from the window. 43 years we'd been married. Never once had I grabbed her wrist in public. Never once had she apologized for existing in my space. The clock read 12:15 a.m. now, December 19th. Rose's call felt like it had happened days ago instead of hours. I thought about Thanksgiving dinner at their house in Westbridge. Rose serving everything perfectly, Olive criticizing the seasoning, Randall correcting Rose's story about her job. She'd grown quieter as the evening wore on, smaller somehow. Christmas last year, she'd called to explain why Randall couldn't make it to Pennsylvania. Work emergency. Always work. Then the gradual isolation. Friends who stopped calling because Rose was never available. Hobbies abandoned because they took time away from Randall's needs. Phone calls that grew shorter and less frequent. I'd watched my vibrant, independent daughter disappear piece by piece, and I'd told myself it was normal. Adjustment period. Growing pains of marriage. Lies. All lies I'd told myself because confronting the truth meant confronting my own failure as a father. Sitting in that wedding reception, watching Rose flinch at her husband's public criticism, I'd felt the same helplessness that consumed me during Martha's final days in the hospital. The same sense of being powerless against forces I couldn't control. But this was different. Martha's cancer had been an enemy we could name and fight together. Randall was a poison that worked slowly, convincing Rose that the sickness was her fault. I'd paid for that wedding, walked her down the aisle, given her away to a man who saw her as property, to be managed rather than a person to be loved. The storm outside was picking up intensity. Tree branches scraped against the siding like fingernails on a chalkboard. Dawn couldn't be far off. I needed sleep, but my mind kept circling back to that phone call, to Rose's broken voice, to my own pathetic response about business contracts and scheduling conflicts. Tomorrow I would call Peterson and... Sleep took me mid-thought, but my dreams were full of wedding bells that sounded like alarm bells, and a daughter who kept apologizing for things that weren't her fault. Morning light crept through frost-covered windows as I stood in the kitchen, nursing my second cup of coffee. The clock above the stove read 10:05 a.m. Sleep had come in fragments, haunted by Rose's broken voice and my own cowardice. The phone rang. Sharp, insistent. "Mr. Hudson?" The voice was professional, familiar. Peterson's assistant from the contracting firm. "I'm calling about your meeting with Mr. Peterson scheduled for December 23rd. I straightened, suddenly alert. 40 years of railroad work had taught me to pay attention when business called. "Yes, I've been preparing the structural assessments for the bridge reinforcement project. Unfortunately, we'll need to postpone until January 8th. Her tone carried genuine regret. "Mr. Peterson's mother was admitted to the hospital yesterday evening? Family emergency?" The irony hit me like a derailed boxcar. Family emergency. "I understand completely. Please give him my regards." "Thank you for being so flexible, Mr. Hudson. We'll confirm the new date after the holidays." The dial tone buzzed in my ear, but I barely heard it. My mind was already racing, calculating possibilities. December 23rd. Free. January 8th. 2 weeks away. I could drive to Massachusetts. I could be with Rose for Christmas. The coffee mug trembled in my hand as the realization sank in. Peterson's crisis had just solved mine. Or maybe created a bigger one, depending on what I found when I got there. I set down the phone and paced to the window. My reflection looked different somehow, less defeated. The gray December morning seemed brighter, full of possibility instead of resignation. 4 hours of driving through December snow. Rose's surprised face when she opened the door. Maybe I could finally see what was really happening in that house, beyond the careful words and forced cheerfulness of our phone calls. My engineering mind kicked into gear, the same methodical approach I'd used for bridge calculations and structural assessments. Route planning. I-95 would be packed with holiday traffic, but I-84 through Hartford might be clearer. Timing. Leave Christmas morning early, arrive during family time when everyone would be together. I moved to the kitchen drawer where I kept important papers. Rose's address, written in Martha's careful handwriting, from the wedding invitation. 47 Maple Street, Westbridge, Massachusetts. I'd driven there once before, 11 months ago, to watch my daughter promise her life to a man who'd already started dismantling her spirit. This time would be different. This time I'd be arriving as her father, not as a wedding guest trying to keep the peace. The house felt electric with purpose. I hadn't felt this kind of clarity since Martha's final days, when every decision mattered and time was running out. Maybe time was running out for Rose, too, in a different way. I needed supplies, gifts, something to show her this wasn't just an obligation visit, but a choice, a priority. The phone rang again. For a wild moment, I thought it might be Rose, somehow sensing my change of plans. But caller ID showed Mrs. Martinez from next door. "Rudy, I saw your light on early. Everything all right?" "Better than all right, Elena. I'm going to see Rose for Christmas after all." "That's wonderful. She'll be so happy." Happy? When was the last time I'd seen Rose truly happy? Not the brittle smile from the wedding photos, or the forced cheerfulness during our brief phone calls. Real happiness, the kind that lit up her blue eyes like Martha's used to. I would find out soon enough. First, I needed to find something special for Rose, something to show her how much she mattered. The next morning brought purpose I hadn't felt in months. I sat at Martha's old kitchen table with road maps spread across the checkered tablecloth, marking routes with a red pen. The methodical planning felt familiar, comforting, like designing a bridge. Every detail mattered. Pine Valley Shopping Center buzzed with last-minute Christmas energy. Families hurried between stores, arms full of wrapped packages, children tugging at coat sleeves. I moved through the crowd with singular focus, my list folded in my coat pocket. The winter clothing boutique felt warm and crowded. A young saleswoman approached with practiced holiday cheer. "Can I help you find something special?" "A warm scarf for my daughter. She lives up north now." "How lovely. What's her coloring like?" I closed my eyes, summoning Rose's face from happier times. "Blue eyes? Light brown hair? She gets cold easily, like her mother did." The woman guided me to a display of wool scarves. My fingers found one in deep blue with silver threads woven through like captured starlight. Soft, practical, beautiful without being showy. This would bring out her eyes perfectly. I paid without checking the price. Some things mattered more than my fixed budget. The bookstore next door smelled of coffee and paper. Rose had always been a reader, even as a child. I found her curled in Martha's chair with mystery novels and biographies of strong women. What kind of books did she read now? Did Randall approve of her reading choices? Biography section. The clerk, a woman about Rose's age, pointed toward the back corner. I scanned the shelves methodically. Too many choices. Then I saw it. Breaking Ground, the story of Julia Morgan, architect. A woman who'd built her own path when the world told her she couldn't. Perfect. The gas station attendant recognized me when I pulled up to check my tire pressure. Getting ready for a trip, Mr. Hudson? Driving to Massachusetts Christmas morning. Surprise visit to see my daughter. That's beautiful. Long drive, though. Weather's supposed to turn. I spent the next 2 days preparing like I was heading into battle. Checked oil levels, topped off antifreeze, tested the spare tire, cleaned out the truck cab and laid emergency supplies in the back. Blanket, flashlight, jumper cables, cell phone charger. The gifts sat wrapped on Martha's old hope chest. Blue paper with silver ribbon. Simple, elegant, the same way Martha used to wrap presents, with hospital corners and perfectly tied bows. December 23rd arrived gray and cold. I spent the morning second-guessing myself. Should I call ahead? What if Rose tried to talk me out of coming? What if Randall's family resented the intrusion? The phone beckoned from its perch on the kitchen wall. I reached for it twice, then pulled my hand back. No. This needed to be a complete surprise. Rose needed to know that someone could show up for her without conditions or appointments or convenient scheduling. Mrs. Martinez waved from her front porch as I loaded my overnight bag into the truck. Going somewhere nice for the holidays, Rudy? Visiting Rose. Haven't seen her in too long. That sweet girl deserves a surprise. Drive safe. That evening I sat in Martha's chair by the fireplace, staring at the wrapped gifts. The blue scarf would keep Rose warm. The biography might remind her of her own strength. But what I really wanted to give her was something I couldn't wrap, the knowledge that she wasn't alone. The weather forecast called for snow starting after midnight. Light accumulation, nothing I couldn't handle. I'd driven through worse storms during my railroad days, checking track conditions in blizzards that would send most people to their basements. I set out my clothes for tomorrow, dress pants and a clean shirt for Christmas dinner, assuming I was invited to stay. The photo of Martha and Rose from Rose's college graduation went into my shirt pocket. A talisman. A reminder of happier times when my daughter smiled without reservation. The alarm clock sat ready on the nightstand, set for 5:30 a.m. 4.5 hours of driving through December weather to see Rose's face light up with surprise. At least I hoped it would be surprise. And joy. Not the complicated emotions that came when someone you loved showed up uninvited to witness your carefully hidden pain. But that was a bridge I'd cross when I reached it. For now, I had a plan. Gifts. And the kind of determination that had carried me through 4 decades of keeping trains running on time. The alarm was set for 5:30. 4.5 hours to see my daughter's face light up with surprise. The alarm shrieked at 5:30 a.m., cutting through dreams of Christmas mornings when Rose was small. I dressed quickly in the pre-dawn darkness, muscle memory from decades of early railroad shifts guiding my movements. Coffee steamed in my thermos as I loaded the truck. Gifts secure in the back seat, road atlas on the passenger seat, tank topped off from yesterday's preparation. The thermometer outside the kitchen window read 22 degrees. Perfect driving weather if the snow held off. Light flakes began falling as I pulled out of the driveway at 6 a.m. sharp. Christmas music drifted from the radio, Bing Crosby crooning about white Christmases. The irony wasn't lost on me. Here I was driving through the start of one, hoping to find my daughter before the snow got too heavy. Mile markers ticked past in the gathering dawn. Pennsylvania countryside rolled by, farmhouses with warm yellow windows and smoke rising straight up in the still air. Other families were probably gathering around Christmas trees right now, children tearing through wrapping paper while parents sipped coffee and took pictures. Was Rose awake yet? Did Randall's family do the big celebration Christmas morning, or were they the type to save everything for dinner? I realized how little I knew about their traditions. Another failure to add to my growing list. The radio crackled. Heavy snow warning for western Massachusetts. Temperatures dropping to 10 degrees. Drive carefully, folks, and have a blessed Christmas morning. 10 degrees. Rose had always been sensitive to cold, even as a child. I remembered Martha bundling her in layers before school, fussing over mittens and scarves, while Rose protested that she looked like a marshmallow. Traffic thickened as I crossed into New York. The snow was coming down harder now, fat flakes that stuck to the windshield between sweeps of the wipers. My grip tightened on the steering wheel. 40 years of driving in all kinds of weather, but today felt different. Today, someone was counting on me getting there, even if she didn't know it yet. Connecticut brought heavier snow and slower traffic. The radio announcer's voice cut through a Christmas carol. I-84 East, moving slowly due to weather conditions, but road crews are out in force. Take your time, and remember, no destination is worth risking your safety. But some destinations were worth the risk, weren't they? Some trips mattered more than comfort or convenience. I stopped for gas outside Springfield, Massachusetts. The station was busy despite the early hour, other travelers pushing through the weather to reach family. A young attendant with kind eyes helped me clear snow from my windshield. "Merry Christmas! Long drive?" "Driving to see my daughter. Want to surprise her?" His face lit up. "That's beautiful. She's lucky to have a dad like you." Lucky. The word sat heavy in my chest as I pulled back onto the highway. Rose used to think she was lucky to have me before I let her marry a man who saw her as something to control rather than someone to cherish. The final hour stretched ahead through clearing skies. Massachusetts countryside opened up around me, rolling hills dotted with bare trees, houses growing closer together as I approached Westbridge. My heart hammered against my ribs with each mile marker. What would I find when I got there? Rose putting on a brave face for Christmas morning while Randall's family criticized everything she did. Or maybe I was wrong. Maybe their phone call had been an isolated incident, emotions running high during the holidays, but something in my gut said otherwise. The same instinct that had kept me safe around heavy machinery for 40 years was telling me that Rose needed rescuing. The GPS announced, "In 2 miles, turn right on Maple Street." Maple Street, Rose's street. I'd driven down it once before, 11 months ago, following a procession of wedding cars to a reception where I'd watched my daughter shrink under her new family's expectations. Houses appeared through the clearing snow. Christmas decorations twinkled from front porches. Children's voices carried on the cold air, kids outside with new sleds and snow boots, making the most of Christmas morning snow. Number 47 sat back from the road, a colonial with green shutters and a wraparound porch. Randall's BMW was parked in the driveway next to an older sedan I didn't recognize. Company, or maybe Olive and Irving had stayed overnight. I parked across the street and sat for a moment, engine running, heat flowing over my cold hands. This was it. No more planning, no more second guessing. Just walk up to that door, ring the bell, and see my daughter's face. The gifts rustled as I transferred them from the back seat to my coat pockets. The biography fit easily in my left pocket, but the scarf made my right side bulge noticeably. I pulled my jacket closed and stepped into the bitter morning air. My breath came out in white puffs as I crossed the street. Somewhere in that house, Rose was probably helping with Christmas breakfast, making sure everything was perfect for Randall's family, making herself smaller so they could be bigger. Not today. Today, someone was coming to make sure Rose knew she mattered. I walked up the driveway, gifts in my coat, ready to see Rose's surprise. Then I saw the figure by the snowbank. The figure wasn't moving, hunched against the white mound of snow, knees drawn up, arms wrapped tight around itself. My brain needed 3 seconds to process what couldn't be possible. Rose, my daughter, sitting in the snow in thin Christmas pajamas. The gifts fell from my numb fingers, scattered across the frozen driveway like discarded prayers. I ran, my bad knee screaming protest, every step bringing the impossible into sharp focus. Her lips were purple. Frost crystallized in her hair. She was shivering so violently her teeth chattered like chattering bones. "Rose," the word tore from my throat. "What are you doing out here?" She looked up with confusion clouding her blue eyes. eyes that had once sparkled with Martha's same intelligence, now dulled by cold and something deeper, something broken. "Dad?" Her voice came out slurred, hypothermic. How are you here? I thought you had that meeting with Peterson." I stripped off my heavy winter coat, wrapped it around her small frame. She felt like ice through the thin fabric. How long had she been out here? In 10-degree weather? In pajamas? "Never mind the meeting. We need to get you warm." I tried to help her stand, but her legs couldn't support her weight. "Can you feel your fingers?" She stared at her hands like they belonged to someone else. "Not really. Everything's fuzzy." I half carried her to the truck, yanking open the passenger door. The heater had been running, warm air rushing out like salvation. I settled her into the seat, cranked the heat to maximum, found the emergency blanket I kept behind the driver's seat. "I'm so sorry, Dad." Tears started flowing down her cheeks, leaving warm tracks on frozen skin. "I made such a mess of everything. You have nothing to apologize for. Nothing." I rubbed her hands between mine, trying to force circulation back into white fingers. "Tell me what happened." Through the windshield, I could see the house, Christmas lights twinkling merrily, warm yellow glow spilling from every window, sounds of laughter and celebration drifting across the frozen lawn. They were inside, enjoying Christmas morning, while Rose nearly froze to death outside their door. "It was an accident," she whispered, words coming clearer as warmth returned to her body. "I was bringing coffee to everyone during present time. There was wrapping paper everywhere, and I tripped." Her voice broke, started again. "The coffee went all over Olive's grandmother's Persian rug, this beautiful, expensive rug that's been in their family for generations. Randall started screaming about how I ruin everything I touch." I kept rubbing her hands, but rage was building in my chest like steam pressure in a locomotive boiler. 40 years of engineering had taught me to recognize when systems were approaching dangerous levels. Olive said they'd been too lenient with me, that I needed to learn consequences. Rose's breathing was evening out, color slowly returning to her cheeks. Irving agreed, said women need discipline. That's how his generation kept marriages strong. And then what happened? Randall told me to go outside and think about being more careful. Her eyes met mine, filled with shame and confusion. In my pajamas. He said I could come back in when I learned my lesson. The pieces clicked into place with mechanical precision. The locked door I'd noticed, her hypothermic state. 4 hours in deadly cold. "They locked you out," she nodded, fresh tears starting. "I tried knocking, but Olive said I was disturbing their Christmas morning, that I'd already done enough damage." Through the passenger window, I could see them in the living room, passing presents around a circle, laughing and toasting with champagne glasses, like they hadn't just left my daughter to freeze to death over spilled coffee. As feeling returned to her fingers, Rose looked up at me with eyes full of pain and shame. "Dad, I need to tell you what really happened this morning." Rose's hands were finally warming in mine, circulation returning with painful tingling. She flexed her fingers experimentally, wincing as feeling returned. "Start from the beginning," I said quietly. "What time did this start?" "Around 8:30. Everyone was in the living room opening gifts. I thought I wanted to be helpful. Brought a tray of coffee from the kitchen." Her voice steadied as warmth spread through her body. "There was beautiful wrapping paper scattered everywhere, silver and gold like a fairy tale. I should have been more careful." I kept my voice level. "What happened when you tripped?" "The coffee went everywhere on their Persian rug, this gorgeous antique that belonged to Olive's grandmother, hand-woven, worth thousands of dollars. She was making excuses for them already, the pattern so ingrained she couldn't stop. Randall started screaming that I ruin everything I touch." My grip tightened on the steering wheel. "Over an accident. But it was such an expensive rug, Dad. I tried to clean it up, but Olive said I was making it worse. She kept saying how they'd been too patient with me, how I needed to learn responsibility." Rose's words came faster now, like a dam bursting. Irving backed her up. Said women in his day knew how to be more careful around nice things. Through the windshield, Christmas music drifted from the house. Jingle bells played while my daughter recounted nearly freezing to death. Then Randall said, "Go outside and think about being more careful." Just like that. No coat, no shoes, in 10-degree weather. "And they locked the door behind you." Rose nodded, shame coloring her cheeks. I knocked after about an hour. My feet were so cold they burned. But Olive called through the door that I was disturbing their Christmas celebration, that I had already ruined enough of their morning. 4 hours. She'd been outside for 4 hours in deadly cold while they exchanged gifts and drank champagne. I kept thinking someone would come check on me. That surely Randall would realize it was too cold, too dangerous. Her voice cracked, but the longer I waited, the more I understood that this was my punishment, for being clumsy, for not being good enough. Rose, listen to me. I turned to face her fully. No one deserves this. You understand that, right? No one. But I did mess up their expensive rug. Stop. The word came out harder than I intended. That rug isn't worth 1 minute of your life, not 1 second. She stared at me like I'd spoken a foreign language. The idea that she mattered more than an object was apparently revolutionary. They said I need to learn to be more careful around nice things, that I don't contribute financially, so I shouldn't destroy what they've earned. Every word was a nail in their coffin. Financial abuse, emotional manipulation, physical endangerment. The pattern was crystal clear to anyone willing to see it. I started getting really cold after the second hour. Couldn't feel my hands anymore. But I thought if I went back inside before learning my lesson, it would just make things worse later. So she'd chosen hypothermia over their anger, chosen potential death over disappointing them further. The level of control they'd achieved over her was breathtaking in its cruelty. When you couldn't feel your hands, Rose, that's when frostbite starts. You could have lost fingers, lost toes. You could have died. I know that now. Fresh tears started. When I saw you walking up the driveway, I thought I was hallucinating. Dad showing up like some kind of Christmas miracle. No miracle. Just a father who'd finally arrived in time to see the truth he should have recognized months ago. Through the passenger window, I could see them in the living room, laughing and passing around presents, like they hadn't just left my daughter to freeze to death. I looked through that window at their perfect Christmas scene and felt something snap inside me like a bridge cable under too much stress. 40 years of measured engineering responses disappeared in an instant. Stay in the truck, Rose. Keep warm. Dad, please don't make it worse. I have to live with them. I turned back to her, my daughter wrapped in my coat like a refugee from her own life. No, Rose, you don't. Not anymore. The walk to their front door felt like approaching a demolition site, each step measured and deliberate. The Christmas wreath mocked me with its cheerful red bough, while I could still hear Rose's teeth chattering behind me. I tried the handle first, locked, just like she'd said. My knock cut through their Christmas music. Footsteps approached. The door opened to reveal Randall, champagne glass in hand, face shifting from surprise to calculated charm. Mr. Hudson, what a wonderful surprise. Rose didn't mention you were coming for Christmas. She couldn't mention it. You locked her outside. His smile faltered for just a moment. I think there's been a misunderstanding. Rose needed some fresh air to calm down after her little accident. In 10-degree weather, in pajamas, for 4 hours. Well, sometimes lessons need to be memorable. The door frame splintered under my boot. Wood cracked like a gunshot as the door slammed against the inside wall. Christmas ornaments rattled on the nearby tree. Silence fell over the living room like a curtain dropping. Olive looked up from her place by the fireplace, Irving from his leather armchair, champagne glasses frozen halfway to lips. I filled their doorway like Judgment Day arrived early. How dare you put my daughter outside in weather that could kill her? Olive recovered first, her voice taking on that patronizing tone I remembered from the wedding. Rudolph, you don't understand the situation. Rose spilled coffee on my grandmother's Persian rug, a priceless family heirloom. And that justifies risking her life? Irving set down his champagne with deliberate calm. You're overreacting, old man. Rose needed to learn responsibility. That's how marriage works. Marriage? I stepped into their warm living room, snow still clinging to my shoulders. You call this marriage? You left her to freeze to death over spilled coffee. Randall moved to block my path, trying to reclaim authority in his own home. This is our house, and Rose is my wife. You have no right to burst in here, and I have every right. She's my daughter, and you nearly killed her. The Christmas tree lights twinkled behind them, expensive gifts scattered beneath, like evidence of their comfortable cruelty. They'd been celebrating while Rose turned blue with cold 10 feet from their door. Olive tried again, her voice rising with desperation. We were teaching her to be more careful with valuable things. You were teaching her to fear you. There's a difference. Marriage requires discipline, Irving insisted, his authority crumbling as I towered over his chair. Marriage requires love, something you people wouldn't recognize if it kicked down your door. That's when Rose appeared behind me, still wrapped in my coat, her presence the final piece of evidence in this case against them. Her frost-bitten fingers, her hypothermic confusion, her body telling the story their words tried to deny. Randall's mask slipped completely. Rose, tell your father you're fine. This is family business, and he's interfering. Rose looked at her husband with new eyes, eyes that had nearly frozen shut outside his door. I couldn't feel my fingers, Randall. I thought I might die. Olive's voice cracked with desperate control. You're being dramatic, Rose. You could have knocked louder if you were really in trouble. She tried. You told her she was disturbing your Christmas. I looked around the room at their shocked faces, then at Rose shivering in my coat. The talking was over. Rose, show me where your things are. We're leaving. Now. The words cut through their stunned silence like a blade through silk. No discussion, no negotiation. The engineering mindset that had kept trains running on schedule for 40 years was taking over. Rose moved toward the staircase, still wrapped in my coat, her steps steadier now that warmth had returned to her limbs. I followed, leaving the family scattered around their perfect Christmas morning like debris after a derailment. You can't just take my wife, Randall's voice cracked as he scrambled after us. This is kidnapping. I turned on the stairs, looked down at him with the same expression I'd used on rookie conductors who thought they could argue with physics. She's my daughter first, and you forfeited your rights when you nearly killed her. Rose's bedroom was small, tucked under the eaves like an afterthought. Her few personal belongings looked lost among the expensive furniture Randall's family had chosen. A childhood teddy bear sat on the dresser next to bottles of expensive perfume. The contrast told the whole story. Just the important things, I said, pulling her college duffel bag from the closet. We can replace everything else. Her hands moved with growing certainty as she selected what mattered. Photos of Martha, her laptop with resume files, the few pieces of jewelry that had been gifts from me, not them. Her fingers paused over the wedding ring, then deliberately left it on the dresser. Olive appeared in the doorway, face flushed with desperate authority. Rose, dear, think about your marriage vows. You promised to stay through good times and bad. Rose looked up from folding her winter coat, the one that had been hanging uselessly in the closet while she froze outside. I promised to love and cherish, not to freeze to death over spilled coffee. Footsteps thundered up the stairs. Irving and Randall crowded behind Olive, 3 adults trying to intimidate one young woman into staying in their carefully constructed prison. You're making a big mistake, old man, Irving wheezed. We know people, important people. I zipped Rose's bag shut and slung it over my shoulder. Your important people weren't there this morning when Rose needed them. I was. We moved toward the stairs, the family backing away like they were facing something dangerous. Maybe they were. Maybe a father's protective love was more dangerous than they'd calculated when they chose cruelty over compassion. In the living room, their Christmas celebration sat abandoned. Expensive gifts scattered under the tree, champagne glasses half empty, the Persian rug still showing coffee stains that had nearly cost my daughter her life. Randall made one last desperate play at the front door. Rose, you can't leave me. We can work this out. I love you. Rose paused, looked back at the man who'd locked her outside to freeze. Love doesn't leave people to die in the snow, Randall. The broken door frame testified to the truth of that morning. I'd kicked it down to reach her, and now we were walking through it toward freedom. Outside, neighbors peered from windows, drawn by the commotion. The family's perfect facade was crumbling publicly, their carefully hidden cruelty exposed for the whole street to witness. Randall followed us to the truck, hands slapping against the hood as I loaded Rose's bag. This is theft. I'll call the police. She's my wife. I walked around to face him using every inch of my height and 40 years of authority, earned through honest work. Step away from my truck. Step away from my daughter. You can't. If you ever contact her again, you'll answer to me, and next time I won't just kick down a door." He stepped back. Cowardice, finally honest, replaced his pretense of authority. Rose settled into the passenger seat, pulling my coat tighter around herself. The truck's heater blasted warm air, chasing away the last of the morning's deadly cold. In the rearview mirror, I could see them standing in their driveway, diminished, powerless, watching justice drive away. As we pulled onto the main road, Rose finally looked back at the house growing smaller in the side mirror. The first 10 miles passed in silence. Rose stared out the passenger window at suburban Massachusetts rolling past, processing what had just happened. I kept the heater running full blast, checking her color in the rearview mirror every few minutes. Finally, she spoke. "Dad, what if I made a mistake? What if they were right about me being careless?" I'd been waiting for this. The victims always blame themselves first. "Sweetheart, spilling coffee doesn't justify leaving someone to freeze to death. Not ever. Not for any reason." Her hands were shaking now that the adrenaline was wearing off. "But what if Randall comes after me? What if he tries to force me back? He won't get within a mile of our house. I guarantee it." By the time we reached the Connecticut border, Rose was starting to talk about practical things. Where she'd sleep, how long she could stay, whether she still had her marketing skills after months of having every decision made for her. "Your old room is exactly like you left it," I told her, "and we'll get you set up with your own bank account first thing. If we need restraining orders, we'll get them, whatever it takes." We stopped for gas and coffee near Hartford. Rose pulled my coat tight around her pajamas, still self-conscious, but the truck driver filling up next to us smiled and tipped his cap. "Y'all heading home for Christmas?" "Taking my daughter home where she belongs," I said. Rose managed a small smile. "Dad surprised me with a visit." It was the first time I'd heard her interact normally with a stranger in months. Not apologizing, not shrinking away, just talking like a regular person deserved to talk. Back on the highway, she found Martha's photo in the glove compartment, the one I'd carried for luck during my railroad days when jobs were dangerous and coming home alive wasn't guaranteed. She would have come too, wouldn't she? If she'd been alive. Your mother would have arrived with a baseball bat and half the church ladies as backup. The memory made us both smile. She never did like bullies. "I don't know how to thank you for saving me." "You don't need to thank me. That's what fathers do." Pennsylvania mountains appeared on the horizon as the December sun started its early descent. Rose was sitting straighter now, color back in her cheeks, voice stronger with each mile that took her farther from that house. "I used to be good at marketing," she said suddenly. "Before I met Randall, I had ideas. Campaigns that worked. You'll have them again. Better ones, probably. You've learned things about people that most marketers never figure out." "Like what?" "Like how to recognize when someone's trying to control you. That's valuable knowledge in business." She was quiet for another hour, watching familiar Pennsylvania countryside roll past. Then, "Do you think I can actually do this? Live on my own, make my own decisions?" "Rose, you survived being married to Randall for 11 months. After that, anything else will feel like vacation." For the first time all day, she laughed. Really laughed, the sound Martha's daughter was supposed to make. As we pulled into Greenwood, past the gas station where I'd bought supplies for the trip, past the diner where Martha and I had shared our first date 45 years ago, Rose pressed her face to the window, like a child seeing Christmas lights. "Everything looks exactly the same." But we both knew that wasn't quite true. The town looked the same. The house would look the same. But Rose was different now. She'd walked through fire and come out the other side, holding her own hand. As we pulled into our driveway, Rose looked at the house where she'd grown up. "It looks exactly the same," she whispered, "but I feel completely different." Rose's office occupied a corner of the 14th floor, with windows overlooking Boston Harbor. Sunlight streamed across her desk, where marketing campaigns spread like blueprints for someone else's success. The nameplate read Rose Hudson in bold letters, maiden name reclaimed, identity restored. I'd driven up for our monthly lunch, a tradition we'd established once Rose got steady on her feet. Watching her move through her workplace with quiet confidence, greeting colleagues who clearly respected her work, I barely recognized the broken woman I'd found in a snowbank 5 months ago. Dad, you should see the nonprofit campaign we just finished. She pulled up graphics on her computer screen. Increase their donor engagement by 40%. My idea about storytelling rather than statistics really worked. Her boss stopped by while I was admiring her wall of client testimonials. Mr. Hudson, you should be proud. Rose has become invaluable here. We're discussing a promotion track. The Waterfront Caf, where we'd lunch, was Rose's choice, a place where young professionals gathered to discuss deals and dreams. She ordered confidently, paid with her own credit card, left a generous tip from her own salary. Sometimes I think about that morning, she said as we watched boats navigate the harbor. How different everything would be if you hadn't come. But I did come. That's all that matters now. Her Cambridge apartment was small, but entirely hers. Every piece of furniture chosen by her, every picture placed where she wanted it. The Christmas cactus on her kitchen windowsill had bloomed twice since she'd brought it home. Another survivor, thriving in better conditions. The divorce had been finalized in March. Clean break, no assets to divide, no lingering connections. Rose had wanted nothing from that life except her freedom. The wedding photos had gone in the trash. The expensive gifts returned or donated. She'd kept only what belonged to her before Randall tried to erase her. I see a therapist once a month, she told me over coffee, just to make sure I stay healthy. She says I'm making remarkable progress for someone who experienced that level of, what did she call it? Coercive control. We walked back toward her office building through spring afternoon sunshine. Other people our age were probably grandparents by now, but I'd take my successful, independent, emotionally healthy daughter over early grandchildren any day. The therapist helped me understand that it wasn't about the coffee, Rose continued. It was never about being more careful or less clumsy. It was about making me small enough that I'd never think I deserved better. A group of her coworkers waved from across the street, heading back from their own lunch break. Rose waved back, comfortable in her place among them. She'd built a life here. Friends, colleagues, a future that belonged entirely to her. What are you doing next weekend? She asked as we reached her building. I want to cook dinner for you. Try out that new recipe I've been working on. I'll bring dessert, your mother's apple pie recipe. She hugged me goodbye on the sidewalk, professional woman in her business suit, saying farewell to her father who'd driven 2 hours just to make sure she was still thriving. Because that's what we did now. We made sure of each other. As I watched Rose disappear into the glass office building, confident and purposeful, I knew Martha would be proud. Our daughter had found her way home to herself. If you liked this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.